Once again, it's on. You know what time it is. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 56 of the Trishan on Sports Show Toss. Yes, it is your main man, T-Squared, Trishan Thomas. Thank y'all so very much for joining us on this episode 56. This week, the Packers get back to their winning ways. They hit the midseason. Are they the same but different, or the different but the same? We'll discuss. The Brewers pick up more hardware. The Bucks think about changing personnel. And then the tall sweep, we got to talk about the insane timeline for the NBA coming up very soon. And when I say very soon, I mean very soon. And the NFL changes rules on minority hiring. We will get into it. But y'all know how we get things started here on Toss. We get it started with the state of the state, where we speak about the state of sports in the state of Wisconsin. And we got to start off with the Green Bay Packers. They get back to their winning ways with a victory against the San Francisco 49ers, 34-17. Easy by NFL standards, even though nothing is given. But it was first we got to hit y'all. We got to hit y'all with this first. Because they went out there and got the job done. We thought it was going to be a much more difficult game than what it actually turned out to be. But when you're missing that much personnel on the 49ers, you talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, gone. Richard Sherman, gone. Deebo Samuel, gone. Pretty much all of their starting running backs, gone. George Kittle, their all-world tight end, gone. Nobody that played in that NFC Championship game in late January, was on the field for this Thursday night football game against the Green Bay Packers. You fully expected them to go out there and handle business the way they did. They went out there and throttled those dudes. It was over at the half. 21-3, it was pretty much a done deal. Now, as I said on my quick toss prediction, which I said the Packers would win 35-17, ended up being 34-17. It just had the feel of one of those games where you're missing that much firepower. And the Packers weren't missing much. They got Aaron Jones back, and give credit to Matt LaFleur for playing this very close to the vest. He was making it seem as if Aaron Jones was going to be hobbled out there and on the pitch count, and they gave him the first 4 carries. I think that calf looks pretty damn good, and he's got another 10 days to get it healed up before they play again on Sunday against the Jaguars. But when you're missing that much firepower, if you're the 49ers, and the Packers not missing that much firepower, and you got a 2-time MVP, Super Bowl winning and Super Bowl MVP quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers on the other side, he's licking his chops to go after these guys. And he did not disappoint, neither did the Packers. So you handle business. You go to 6-2. You're leading the NFC North. You're currently number 3 in the NFC. So if the playoffs were to start now, you would have a home game, but you would be playing on Wild Card Weekend. As you know, the playoff format has been changed. Only the 1 seeds in both conferences get a first-round bye. But with the vote today by the NFL, they put in a contingency plan to expand the playoffs by 1 more team per conference, which would mean the top 2 seeds would, in fact, get a first-round bye. So that's a little bit interesting, and that's the COVID contingency. So that will prove to be very interesting. You hope they don't have to use that, but again, I digress. We're talking about the Green Bay Packers right now. You're officially at the midpoint of the season. Officially. People think it's the bye week. No, it's a 16-game season for now. You're at the midpoint when you hit 8 games. They've hit 8 games. They're 6-2. Let's talk about what this team kind of sort of looks like so far this season. Offensively, I think there is no question that these guys in every single spot are far more comfortable this season than they were last season. Now, this season being year 2 under head coach Matt LaFleur's offense. Aaron Rodgers probably looks the most comfortable of all. And I said this on the Toss blog, which you can read at tossnationmedia.com. He looks the most comfortable of all. He looks like he now has command of the offense again. Last year, it did not seem like that. It seemed as if he was still learning. This offense as a whole was still learning and growing and trying to figure things out. And they were winning games pretty ugly. But like I said, a win is a win. It doesn't matter how you get it. It's a win. But last year compared to this year, last year it seemed as if they were scraping the barrel for points. They finished up averaging 23 points a game, or just a little over 23 points a game last season. This season so far, it's over 31. They are by far more comfortable, and guys know their roles far better this season than they did last season in this offense, and it's showing. It is showing. But how does that defense look? Because I got to tell you, that defense for me is more of the same. Now we know the pass defense is really what buoys the entire defense of being close to top 10. Currently sitting at number 12 overall, number 11, number 12 overall in total defense. When healthy, this passing defense makes it difficult for opposing offenses to come here and try to do anything through the air. They ruin your aerial plans. Jair Alexander has cemented his status this season as a shutdown corner. The tape proves it. The numbers prove it. The very fact that you had a game or two where teams decided not to even throw his way, he has cut that field in half and put the clamps on some of the best in the business. When Kevin King is healthy, he is another good corner. You have good safeties back there. Darnell Savage, Raven Green, Adrian Amos. You have guys back there in that secondary that can absolutely get the job done. And they do, in fact, get the job done on a consistent basis. Where you run into trouble is with the running defense. And this season, something I never thought they would have a problem with, the pass rush. I never, with Zadarius Smith back there and with Preston Smith, I never thought that they would have problems getting the pressure and getting home to the quarterback. Now, Zadarius Smith is having a pretty good season, but Preston Smith has been missing multiple games. The San Francisco game was really the first time we could say his name and say it consistently and emphatically. Causing the pressure, getting a hit on Nick Mullins, the 49ers quarterback, which caused the interception. This was the most consistent pressure that I've seen Preston Smith get on the quarterback all season long. For whatever reason, they're having problems getting home to the quarterback and getting real good, consistent pressure on the quarterback. Kenny Clark is getting double and triple teamed. He's a large man, strong man. There's only so much he can do when he's constantly dealing with that game after game after game after game. They got to get that guy some help on that line. It can't just be him and him alone. They've got to get him some help. And it sounds like at a trading deadline, they were kind of in on some guys on the defensive line, in addition to Will Fuller, which they did not pull the trigger on either one of them. So it's a moot point. But this running defense, you saw it against the Vikings. And Dalvin Cook, let's be clear. Dalvin Cook is one of the best backs in the NFL, period. That's a guy that does not get the credit he deserves. And if he does get credit, he doesn't get enough. Not in my book. He carved you up. And then he went on and did the same thing to the Lions last week. He's a special back, and it's going to take a lot to really go and shut him down. You didn't have that. And that's why you lost that Vikings game. You didn't have that, and that's why you lost that Vikings game. You didn't have that, and that's why you lost the Tampa Bay game. Ronald Jones ran all over you. Talk about a Buccaneers team that went and got waxed at home against the Saints on Sunday Night Football. A Saints team that you beat. So that run defense continues to be troubling. But you have to be encouraged by the offense. But you don't want it to be the same thing that it's been for a majority of Aaron Rodgers' career. He's never really played with a really good – the Super Bowl year, that defense was so hurt. The whole team was so hurt, but they came together, got hot at the right time, went on a run. That defense ended up being a superb defense. It really did. For as banged up, as hurt as they were, even in the Super Bowl game, they got hurt. Charles Woodson going down. Those guys were able to pull it off and became a superb defense along the way. But you don't want this to be, let's have Aaron Rodgers go out there and have to score 40 and hope the defense doesn't give up 41, because that's really what it's been. It's been all offense. It's been the great deodorant of Aaron Rodgers and his performance and his offense performance led by him that covers up the deficiencies for this defense. It can't be like that anymore. That's not going to win you anything. You got to be able to go out there and stop somebody. When your pass defense is so good that you force a team to have to run the football to try to move it, you should be licking your chops. You should be able to stuff that run and just make them look futile on defense, both through the air and on the ground. That's the formula you want. But it doesn't work if you can't stop a nosebleed. It doesn't work when your run defense is like trying to drink water from a colander. You got to do something to improve that. That has been an area of weakness for years now, and it's cost you championships. So in summary, the Green Bay Packers are looking much more potent offensively. Not an issue. But defensively, that run defense, you don't want to say it, but all evidence points to it, and it's already happened multiple times. It's going to cost you in the playoffs. It's already cost you 2 games this year. It's going to cost you in the playoffs if you don't do something about it. If you don't scheme some way to make sure that you're able to hold the run and make sure guys are in the proper positions. That's what coaching is all about. The players have to go out there and get it and execute it. The coaches have to go out there and adjust when they need to. So different, but the same for the Green Bay Packers here at the midpoint. Like I said, they're 6-2. They're the number 3 seed currently in the NFC. Definitely have a shot at getting that 1 seed. A lot of football left to be played. You have the 1-7 Jacksonville Jaguars up next at Lambeau Field. You have got to go out there and handle business against those guys. And I think they will. But we'll see. Guess you have to watch for Quick Toss for that official prediction. Let's keep it moving. State of the state here on Toss. And make a quick stop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. AmFam Park I guess that's what they're going to start calling it soon. It's Forever Miller Park for me. And talk the Milwaukee Brewers and not just talk the Brewers overall. Let's just talk about one specific Brewer. Shout out to Devin Williams. Already won the Reliever of the Year award, and it was well-deserved. When I heard that he was a finalist for the NL Rookie of the Year award, I'm like, no way they give it to a pitcher, much less a relief pitcher. But this relief pitcher wasn't just any relief pitcher. This was the most dominant relief pitcher in the NL. This was the most dominant relief pitcher probably in the entire MLB. And you're talking about a team that has Josh Hader on it that's won that award. Well, here's something that Josh Hader could not even do, which is win the Rookie of the Year. Congratulations to Devin Williams. Man, I told you guys that changeup is devastating. It reminds me of Johan Santana, the great lefty. It reminds me of his changeup, which was absolutely gruesome. I mean, it's worse than filthy. It's worse than gross. It's worse than nasty. It was gruesome. Nobody could touch it. And that's what you get with the Devin Williams changeup. It is gruesome. It is filthy. It is nasty. Nobody can touch it. And you add a fiery fastball that could get up to 97, 98 miles per hour. That is an unfair drop. When you go from 97, 98, and you could drop it down to 83, 82 with nasty downward movement on a changeup. It almost acts as a knuckleball almost. It kind of flutters in there. You don't know where it's going to go from time to time. But then other times you just see it go straight down. It just darts down. It's amazing to watch. He was amazing to watch all season. Only gave up one run all year. One. A 0.33 ERA for the entire season. And yes, it was a shortened, condensed season. It was a 60-game season. I get it. But to be able to go out there and do that in a 60-game season against these kinds of hitters, I don't care who you are. I don't care how many games that was played. That is amazing. That is amazing. So shout out to him. It is well-deserved. Devin Williams, NL Rookie of the Year. Man, it just makes you think, what is he going to do for an encore next season? Makes you excited for this team. Hopefully they could build a team, but it seems like they're slashing prices or slashing payroll again. But we'll talk about that another day. Right now, it's time for celebration. Devin Williams, shout out to you. NL Rookie of the Year. Well-deserved. Congratulations. Let's keep it moving here on State of the State, here on Toss, and talk Milwaukee Bucks basketball. Now, a couple episodes ago, we had the great Professor P here on the show, and we told the story arc of the Milwaukee Bucks from the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals to the 2020 Eastern Conference Semifinals, and just asked a lot of questions along the way and hit a lot of points along the way. And we kind of started talking about guys that we would they were potentially in on, possibly trading for, but we didn't talk about all of them. Let's start with Victor Oladipo. Now, I'm not even going to sit here and talk free agents because I don't know how deep they're going to go into the free agency pool. I believe after numbers were crunched, they're about 10 million under the cap. So they're approaching luxury tax, which ownership has said now for a couple of off seasons that they don't mind going into the luxury tax, but we have yet to see that. We have yet to see them spend into that luxury tax. And, it's proceed with caution, especially right now with COVID, with this pandemic, and it's hurting certain segments of the business. So I don't blame them for being cautious this season, at least, with going into the luxury tax. So I'm not even going to talk about free agents. You're really scraping the bottom of the barrel on free agents, honestly, this season. And not that there aren't some good pieces in there that could fit on the team, and those guys would be good role players. Technically, Anthony Davis would be a free agent because he's opting out of his contract, but we all know he's going to re-sign with the LA Lakers. We know this. Fred VanVleet is out there. I don't see him as a fit in Milwaukee. So, we can go past that. Brandon Ingram, he's probably going to resign with New Orleans. He's becoming a superstar down there. So we're not even worried about that. We'll talk about guys who have contracts and need to be traded, like a guy like Victor Oladipo. Logically, he would probably be the best fit. You're looking for a guy who can go out there and create his own shot, a guy who can go out there and hit the three when necessary. Professor P talked about bringing on another leader, and to which I did not agree. I think there are more than enough leaders on this team. So you're not necessarily trading for a leader. You're trading for a guy that can go out there and create when it matters most and create successfully. And I think Oladipo is a guy that kind of fits that bill. I think that is a logical move. Another guy, and this might be the guy that they're the most in on, Jrue Holiday. Now, Professor P brought up something very, very interesting when we spoke about Jrue Holiday. He feels that it's kind of one and the same with he and Eric Bledsoe, because let's be honest. We've seen playoff Bledsoe. We've seen him for multiple playoffs now. The consensus is that he's just not enough. He's just not enough. When it matters in those critical moments, it's just not enough. But he feels that they are one and the same. He just feels that maybe Jrue's a little bit more consistent shooting from the outside, and it makes you think. And I think back to the games that I watch of Jrue Holiday's, and I think back to the games I watch of Eric Bledsoe's, and he kind of has a point. Both of them could defend very well. Bledsoe's been on first team all defense. They're two of the better defensive guards in the league. So both of them can defend. Both of them can get to the cup. I think Holiday's a little bit better of a distributor than is Bledsoe. But when he kind of planted that seed in my head, I'm like, man, just thinking about it, when you sit down and really think about it, man, their games kind of do mirror each other. Would you be getting would you really be making a lateral move? You get rid of Bledsoe, but then you get Holiday, and it's really the same deal. And I already know the rebuttals that people are going to come with. Oh, did you see how he played with Anthony Davis? And yeah, I saw how he played with Anthony Davis when they were both in New Orleans. And Holiday was really the straw that stirred the drink. That team changed when he went down with an injury. But who's to say it's going to be that way in Milwaukee? We don't know. We don't know he's going to have that kind of an impact. So when you really think about it and you watch their games side by side, they kind of mirror each other. They kind of do. It really makes you think, what element would he bring to the table that's different than Bledsoe? I mean, you really have to sit down and think about it critically. Another guy that I don't even think should be a true thought, DeMar DeRozan. And it's not because he can't play. It's not because he can't produce. He can still play at a very high level. He can still produce. But I don't know how he would fit on this team. I don't know how that would work. Plus, is he also the guy that adds that creative shot element in the clutch to the table? I just don't know. I just don't know. When I think about these guys and I think about how would they fit on the Milwaukee Bucks, you just get a lot more questions than answers. It's like, I'm not sure how they would fit, because then you also have to think about Budenholzer and his rotations and how he's going to deploy minutes and the main goal of the squad is to have Giannis going down the court and sucking in the defense and kicking it out so guys can hit those outside shots. How would those guys fit into that style of play? It really perplexes you, because usually I can sit down and break it down and have a genuine answer on, okay, yeah, this could work. But now, seeing everything that you've seen over the first 2 seasons under Mike Budenholzer, I don't know if it would work. I don't know if any of these guys will work in that system. You definitely see the skills and the talent that they bring to the table, what they could potentially bring to the team, but will they be used that way? And that's where it gets confusing, because I'm not sure they would be. I don't know how they would be used. I don't know if their talent would be deployed correctly in Milwaukee. So the Bucks continue to think about what they're going to do and who they're going to bring in and how can they improve their squad. There's a compacted timeline, and we'll get to that coming up in the tall sweep, which we're headed to right now. Tall Sweep, brought to you by the good folks at Toss Nation Media. Toss Nation Media, truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. The NFL, and we'll get to the NBA after this, but the NFL has kind of done an overcorrection, I think one might call it, to the Rooney Rule. So today they had a vote, and I spoke about that earlier in State of the State, and that's where the playoff contingency plan came into play. They also had another vote on minority hiring, as we know, has been a problem forever in the over 100-plus year history of the NFL. You had the Rooney Rule, which mandates teams must interview a minority candidate whenever they have a head coaching vacancy. Mandates it. If you do not, then you are penalized. And we know why they had to do that. Black coaches were being shut out. Despite their talents and the knowledge of the game that they bring to the table, the ability to coach up teams, to coach up players, they were being shut out. So the Rooney Rule helped that. Now, because if you don't interview a minority candidate and before you hire your head coach and you get penalized, now there's been sort of an overcorrection in my book. Teams get 2 compensatory picks if they are developing. This is if they're developing minority head coaching and GM candidates. They get 2 compensatory picks if they lose a minority employee to a head coaching or general managing job with another team. So that's 2 compensatory picks they get if they lose a minority employee to a head coaching or general manager job if they're developing those employees. Teams get 3 picks if they lose a minority employee to both jobs, meaning if they lose one to a head coaching job and one to a general managing job, they get 3 compensatory picks. So the NFL will award teams for, and I'm using air quotes by reward teams for hiring minorities, developing minorities, and having them get hired by other teams. Now, this idea had been floated around sometime last year, and I was not sure how I felt about it. It picked up steam, and now you have the vote, and it's pretty much going to be in play, and now it's real. You're literally, without paying teams to hire minority candidates. Developing them and hoping that other teams will hire them so you get those rewards, so you reap those rewards. Because you only get these picks if they're hired by other teams. You can't hire them. If they're hired by other teams, then you get it. I just don't know how I feel about this. Like, you literally, you have the Rooney Rule, which penalizes teams if they don't seriously interview, or at least the spirit of the rule is to seriously interview a minority head coaching candidate. And we know that teams for years have been pretty much interviewing somebody, a minority candidate who, with their amount of experience, just won't get that position because of the fact that they are a minority. And I say this because you look at a guy like Judge in New York, the New York Giants head coach, who, let's be clear, this guy was not ready to be a head coach. Look at the Giants currently. He was not ready to be a head coach. The least amount of experience. You had Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator, Kansas City Chiefs, world champions, ready to be a head coach, put in that time, developed himself. One of the best play callers in the NFL. Teaming up with Andy Reid, who also calls plays. The guy is ready to be a head coach. And you pick this guy who led special teams for the Patriots. That's the disparity with the Rooney Rule. Let it be a black candidate with the same exact resume as Judge, and he's not getting hired. Teams will interview guys like that just to say, oh, we interviewed so-and-so, so now we can really go and hire the guy we want. The guy who's had this job, and we've already had discussions with him. You've already had to threaten teams to penalize them for not seriously interviewing them, which we know they don't. They don't seriously interview a minority candidate. And now you're going to reward them with picks in the NFL draft, opportunities to make their teams better via picks for hiring and developing and hoping they get hired by other teams. And I just don't know how, I don't, something in me just does not feel right about it. It just makes me feel really uneasy. It's like, why can't they just really, Eric Bieniemy should be a head coach right now. He should be a head coach right now. And you heard the story about, in the offseason where, Colorado came calling. He was going to be a head coach of Colorado, but then he's like, no. He wants that shot in the NFL. He should have had that shot in the NFL. And I think he's going to be a head coach. He's going to be a head coach. There's no doubt in my mind he is going to be a head coach in the NFL. And I think he's going to do well. He should have had that opportunity this past offseason. He earned that opportunity to be a head coach this past offseason. And yet the problems that persist in the society continue to rear their ugly head in the NFL. And now we have this rule, which NFL executive Troy Vincent absolutely loves. And I hope he's right. I hope it's a step in the right direction. But right now, as we're talking here on Toss, it does not make me feel good. It does. I have an uneasy feeling about this rule. I just have an uneasy feeling about it. The NBA has an insane timeline for the 2020-2021 season to start. Today, there was a vote by the Board of Governors, which I said on the Toss Facebook page that eventually the Board of Governors would vote after the NFL Players Association and their representatives agreed to it. Now the CBA, worked on, slightly tweaked CBA has been agreed upon. And the NBA season is a green light. It's officially a green light. It will begin on December 22nd, but take a listen to this timeline. Now, we talked about this last week on Toss, a little bit about the dates, but there were a lot of dates that I mentioned that were not set already. They were not set at that point in time. Now we have a little bit more clarity. So check out this calendar. November 18th, which is a date we already knew, is the NBA draft. Now, the next date that I was like, you guys don't even have a date for this, was about free agency. Free agency starts 2 days later, November 20th. It starts at 6 p.m. But free agency signings cannot be done until November 22nd at 12:01 p.m. December 1st, which is a little over a week later, training camp begins. And then December 22nd, the season begins. It's opening night for the NBA. Now, the freeze on trades being lifted is still to be determined, but it's looking like it's going to be in the November 16th area. But that is an insane timeline when you think about the NBA Finals just ended. And you're talking about literally 70 plus days between the season ending and the season beginning. I have a couple of problems with this. You have teams who play late into that season. You talk about the Lakers, talk about the Heat. You talk about, conference finalists. You talk about the Celtics were in the Eastern Conference Finals. You talk about the Nuggets who were in the Western Conference Finals. And yes, the main complaint or the main rebuttal that people are going to have is, they have 4 months off. It was a pandemic. All of this is uncharted water. It was a pandemic. Yes, they had 4 months off, but some of those guys got COVID. Nikola Jokic, Russell Westbrook, Eric Bledsoe, Pat Connaughton. Guys had to battle COVID in that 4 months. It wasn't like it was an easy cakewalk for anybody. They had 4 months off, but then they had to come back and play 8 seeding games. And it wasn't the whole league, which we'll get to in a minute. You had teams that came in, played 8 seeding games, and then the rest of the teams had to go and get themselves ratcheted up to go and play intense physical playoff basketball. It's not an easy thing to do. And then you're doing it inside of a bubble where you can't leave. You can't come and go as you please. And you can't have anybody and everybody that you're used to having in your life in and out of the bubble. So you're essentially on a 3 to 4 month road trip. That's mentally taxing, as we all saw Paul George shed light on that. It's physically taxing. And now it's ended, and you're going to start it back up again. So here's the thing. How inferior is this product going to be in the first month or so of the season? You're going to have teams practicing load management off the top, especially teams that went deep into the playoffs. Now, let me preface that. I'm not saying it's a certainty. I'm just giving you my opinion based on this timeline, when things ended and when things are supposed to restart, on how I think it's going to go. It's going to be some real tough basketball to watch, I think, over the course of the first few seasons. Not the first few seasons, but the first few weeks. And that's a problem because you're supposed to be having a full slate of Christmas Day games. Who are you going to pick for those Christmas Day games? How well are they going to be playing at that point? Are they going to be duds? Are they going to be blowouts? Are they going to be low-scoring games because neither team is, physically all there or, not ratcheted up? I mean, the season starts in October. By December 25th, teams have kind of gotten into a flow. You kind of know who's good and who isn't. Teams are starting to separate themselves a little bit. You won't have that this season. Everybody's everybody's on the ground floor, starting their season. So that's the problem I have with it. Well, there might be injury involved. The product on the court just won't be that good. I mean, yeah, you got training camp starting off on December 1st, but you have to incorporate free agents if you sign some, rookies, if you plan on playing them into the system, and you don't have a whole hell of a lot of time to do that. It's not the same offseason. You can't integrate them into a program and nothing, none of that. You can't give free agents time to adjust to a new team, new surroundings, nothing. And you're still operating within a worldwide pandemic, which is another issue because now you're not doing this inside of a bubble. You're doing this in everyone's arena. More testing, more stress, more chance for guys to catch it. You see the NFL, they're still struggling with it. So besides all those problems, what's the flip side of that? Well, you could end up with some parity. Because remember, not every team was invited to that bubble. Not every team that was in that bubble during the seeding games made the playoffs. Suns finished 8-0 in those seeding games. They were undefeated in the bubble. Are they going to bring that back? Are they going to continue that role? Is that who the Suns are? That kind of a team? Will they bring that to the court in the 2020-2021 season? Will the Knicks actually do something? Not likely, but will they? I don't know. It may be some of these teams that will Sacramento finally put all the pieces together. You got a 72-game season, 10 games short of a full season. You got some teams who are probably still worn out from bubble play, from a deep playoff run. One of the most difficult playoffs that there has ever been, probably ever will be inside that bubble during a worldwide pandemic. Mentally taxing, physically taxing. Now coming to play in arenas and travel and everything else. There's a real chance for some real parity around the league. So as insane as this timeline is, and you get why the NBA is doing it. One, because they don't want to lose between $500 million and $1 billion by starting on January 18th. They want to recoup some of these losses that they've had. And they also want to get that Christmas Day money. Let's be real about it. But they also wanted to kind of get things back to normal with the normal schedule. They wanted to start. And yeah, you're starting, a couple months later than you normally do. Remember, the NBA season starts in October. But now you're starting in December. You're kind of resetting it back to where it was. 10 less games. About a month and a half less. You're right on track to really end your season in June, like you normally do after the NBA Finals. Won't have an all-star game, unfortunately, but you'd much rather have everybody safe. It's going to be really interesting to see if teams are going to do the load management route. It's really going to be interesting to see if teams will, if some teams that you don't expect and have just been waiting to put those pieces together, actually put them together in a 72-game season. with teams who have played in the bubble and who may not all be all there yet. So there's a chance that it's going to be some really crappy basketball at the beginning, but some parity involved with it. So the NBA is back. I know some people are very excited. I just want everyone involved to stay safe. We are still within a worldwide pandemic. So we're going to need everybody to stay safe. I mean, that's the main objective, right? Worldwide pandemic. Got to stay safe. The NBA is back. Didn't think I'd see it. Not at this time. I thought we were going to go. I just didn't know how they would pull this off, what they were going to do. They were going to go back into the arenas. 72 games. Anything can happen. Let's see if the Bucks can actually bounce back when we talk about all this parity and teams getting back to it. Let's hope they get back to playing that best brand of basketball that we've seen them play the last couple of seasons. Well, y'all, that'll do it for me. So it's episode 56 of the Trishan on Sports Show Toss. TossNationMedia.com. Your home for the Toss brand of sports. Truthful, opinionated, passionate sports. It's what you deserve. Y'all know where to find me on social media. At the20double on both Instagram and Twitter. That's at the number 2, the number 0, and the word double. And yes, Toss is on Facebook. Facebook.com/T on Sports Show. That's TON Sports Show. Break down a lot of things that we don't touch on during the show. So go there and learn. I mean, what else do you expect to do on the website? You got to learn something, right? But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. It's a T-Squared, Tristan Thomas, reminding all of you, keep it moving forward. Always forward. Forward always. Until next week. So long from Toss.